So, what did we learn in NFL Week 14? We'll start with the Thursday night game. Houston, really the question now is not whether they'll draft a quarterback or not. The question really is how well Clowney can play with J.J. Watt. They'll most likely get the first pick. They'll most likely take Clowney, and to have Clowney and Watt on the same team, that will be an intimidating pass rush. Jacksonville, I can't say enough about Gus Bradley. He has really just turned this team around. He hasn't let them quit, and I'm just really impressed with what he's doing there in Jacksonville. Maybe saving the team from relocation, really. For Seattle, the thing about that loss you have to take into account is that they're still in control of the NFC. That's how well they've played up to this point. Is that they can lose a game and still be in pretty good control. So they have to win their games out, but they're doing well. They're in good position. For San Francisco, they're back. They had that little mid-season lull, but they're a very good football club, and you don't want to face them in the playoffs. They know how to get a win. For Minnesota, they may not have AP for the next couple of weeks. It sounds like he may be back. He's questionable, but does it really matter? Really, at this point, you're saving him for next season. I'm just wondering if they're ever going to get a Super Bowl squad around him. With such a dominating running back, you wish the Vikings could have more success, but I don't think it's going to happen, and his prime will, I think, be wasted. For Baltimore, they're quietly sneaking into the playoffs, and I know we expect more out of a Super Bowl team, and we're kind of disappointed with them this year, but making the playoffs is really what it's about, and whatever way you can get in there is a good way. For Carolina, they showed they're not quite there yet. Do I think they'll be ready to face New Orleans in a couple weeks and give them a hell of a battle? I do. Do I think they'll be ready for the playoffs? Yeah, and I think they can compete with the big dogs. But it's hard to go into New Orleans and play, and I think it was a little bit of a wake-up call for Ron Rivera's squad. For New Orleans, you don't mess with them at home. You really don't. I think that if the Seahawks would have gone into New Orleans, they very well could have lost. I think if any playoff team goes into New Orleans, there's a very good chance they're losing. They are very good at home. Whether or not they can play on the road is the question, and right now they probably will have to play on the road to get to the Super Bowl. So it's really just a question of if they can do that. For Miami, they're somehow finding ways to win, and that really shows a lot about the squad. They went through a lot this season, but they're getting the job done, and that's what it's all about. For Pittsburgh, when you lose so many games early, a tough loss like they had against Miami, those losses happen, and it's really a knockout blow. And so that's why it's crucial to start the season on a high note, and the Steelers didn't do that this year, and they're not going to the playoffs because of it. For St. Louis, my question is, do they look for a quarterback next year? Is Sam Bradford the answer? I know that he's their guy. I know that they've stuck with quarterbacks for a fairly long time in the past, but I'm really wondering if he's really the answer. Obviously, we don't get a look at him because he's injured, but that's a question for St. Louis. Arizona, they're not dead yet. It's going to be a tough road for them to get in, but I would not be surprised if they get in. And it shows you how strong the NFC West is. 3 teams that are very, very solid football clubs. For Indianapolis, they have huge problems, and the main one is the running game. They don't have one, and Trent Richardson was supposed to fix that, so I'm really wondering what's going on. They spent a lot to get Richardson, and if he can't bring a run game to Indianapolis, it looks like the Colts got kind of screwed in that trade. For Cincinnati, Giovanni Bernard is a stud. He is really an up-and-coming player. It took him a little bit to get going, but he's having a great year, and I think he'll be a great running back in the future. For Cleveland, that's a tough loss, but Josh Gordon, and people say, but they shouldn't really have lost that game. Their season doesn't really matter. But Josh Gordon, that's really all that matters in Cleveland right now is Josh Gordon and how awesome he is. So it's got to give Cleveland something to cheer about. For New England, I really think the loss of Rob Gronkowski is a death sentence for them. They'll make the playoffs, of course, but I really don't see them going very far. They've shown that they have problems dealing without Gronk, and that just it hurts. It's a big loss. For Oakland, that their defense is no good, and I think that's really going to be a point of emphasis this offseason. I think they stick with what they got at quarterback and really try to build up that defense because I think they can be serviceable until and mediocre until they get a quarterback. And McGloin and Pryor, I think one of them can really start stepping up. For the Jets, keep rolling with Geno was a really smart move. I think I said last week that they should stick with him, and they did, and it paid off. He does have moments of brilliance, and when he isn't thinking so much, that he's really good. So I think as long as they keep rolling with him, he'll grow and he'll develop, and he'll be a solid quarterback. For Detroit, if you take away their pass game, they really don't have anything. They do have a run game, but it's predicated on how well they throw the ball, and that really showed in their loss against Philadelphia. As for Philadelphia, got to tip my hat to LaShawn McCoy and Chip Kelly. This is really what the offense is based around, is speed, and McCoy's just the perfect back for Chip Kelly's offense. Really, they're in control of the NFC East now. I'm just impressed with Chip Kelly and McCoy this year for the Eagles. For Buffalo, where was the run game? Really, they have great running backs, and it really did not show against Tampa Bay, and that's a problem. You have to look at where that stems from. For Tampa Bay, my question is, does Schiano keep his job? He's really had a very successful couple of weeks here, and I'm wondering if that really saved his job. I don't think he's a great coach, but his players are fighting for him, and that's really a huge thing when you're a coach, is if your players will go out to war with you. For Kansas City, that was a great win, but it was expected. There's really not a whole lot to learn from the Chiefs' win, but it's a win, and a win is a win. For the Redskins, the whole RG3, Mike Shanahan, Dan Snyder, it's a mess. It's awful. It's one of the worst franchise messes I've seen in a long time. They're screwed for the future. I think RG3 has a chance to be great, but their coach doesn't help them. Their owner doesn't help them. It's just a franchise in ruins. I don't see them competing for a long time, so I'm sorry, Washington fans, if there's any left. Atlanta, they're playing better. I think Mike Smith stays. I hope he stays. He's a great coach, and they've kind of been battling injuries this year, and it happens. Some great franchises have a bad season here and there. For Green Bay, they could really sneak into the playoffs right now if Rodgers gets healthy, and that's, you don't want to face Aaron Rodgers in Green Bay if Rodgers is healthy. That's a tough matchup any day, and there's a lot of problems in Green Bay and on their team, but they got Rodgers. A lot of those just kind of slip away. For Tennessee, I wonder how their season would have played out if Jake Locker was healthy, if they could have competed with Denver and teams like that. I really think they could have. I think they're a solid team, but I just think that Locker injury kind of killed him. And I'm wondering kind of how they advance in the future. He's kind of been injured and knocked around the last couple of years. So I wonder how Tennessee goes further with this. Denver, I really think they're the best in the NFL at this point, offensively, defensively. I would have said Seattle and Carolina probably prior to this week, but both those teams losing and not looking particularly great while doing so, and Denver really just ripping through Tennessee. I think they're the best at this point. I don't know if they'll continue to be the best, but they are certainly at this point. For the Giants, could this be the end of the Manning era? Could this be the end of the Tom Coughlin era? Both guys have had their run, and both Super Bowl champions. It's tough to say when a franchise should move on from something like that, but eventually you do have to move on. The Lombardis of the world are still not around. The Bart Starrs of the world are still not around. The franchises change, and I think this might be a season where Giants have to start realizing that it's time for that change. For San Diego, Rivers and Manning came in at the same time. They were traded for each other on draft day. And you see Manning in such decline right now, and you see Rivers doing so well right now. So I'm wondering how long Rivers can keep it up. I'm wondering if Manning can kind of go back into a Rivers and be that successful. But they're kind of at the same stage of their careers, but one's definitely more successful in his career so far. That would be Eli, but Rivers is more successful right now. So I'm wondering kind of how that plays out. For Dallas, they really don't have a defense. They should have won the NFC East pretty handily this year, but they don't have a defense, and that kills. I don't know why people say defense doesn't win championships. I know it's an offensive league now, but good defenses know how to stop great offenses, and Dallas isn't a good defense, and so even mediocre offenses like the Bears can score 45 on them. As for the Bears, I really think was a game to say goodbye Jay Cutler. He's due a lot of money, and I think they found Josh McCown can be serviceable until they find a solid quarterback, and I think if they can develop a quarterback by drafting one this year or the next year, I think Josh McCown can really be good for the next 2 or 3 years, and for a lot cheaper than Cutler. That's it for NFL Week 14. Follow me on Twitter. Check out the blog. You know what's up.